Welcome, everyone. Dr. Anthony Criniti IV here, also known as Dr. Finance. You're on the Dr. Finance Live podcast. Folks, we got an incredible guest for you today. We got Fred Penney here, folks. Frederick Penney, incredible, super lawyer, one of the top lawyers in the United States, just doing amazing stuff. He's got a really cool book out now with my buddy Mark Victor Hansen and the Mark Victor Hansen Library. And the book is called Goose. But we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a lot of the other things today as well. So with that said, welcome, Fred. How are you, sir?
How you doing, man? Thanks for having me on, Tony. I appreciate it, bud.
Absolutely. Honored to have you here, Fred. So, Fred, before we get started with your story, I'd like to get like a quick 30-second snapshot. If you can tell the audience about who you are, maybe 30 seconds or so, just to get an idea. Thank you.
Let me tell you, I hate to be unprofessional, but you and I have talked about this. We had an emergency, and I'm not missing this podcast for anything. So, look, we've got to tell I like telling the listeners the behind the scenes stuff. And as you know, I've got a radio show called Radio Law Talk. That's the second largest nationally syndicated law show in the United States. And I tell the behind the scenes, Tony. And the behind the scenes are, this was all set up. I could have been in my studio. It would have looked perfect. But I had an emergency in Salt Lake City, Utah. Called my pilots, flew the jet, just landed, literally walked off my jet, and I'm going over to my house in Utah. I have a house in Utah, and then I got to go off to a meeting at 11, and we're going to do this thing, whether we like it or not, Tony, in the car, in the house, walking around. And I was going to do it landing, but I just couldn't quite get it done. Sorry, I got my finger on so we're going to be a little unprofessional and a little bit weird, but it's going to be fun. We're going to have fun with this. Is that okay with you?
Oh, I love it. Yeah, fun is my middle name.
Yeah, because see how it's like bouncing and stuff. You don't want to do that because I'm holding it while I'm bouncing in the car driving around, but I'm going to be at the house in a few seconds. But yeah, a little bit about me. So really quick. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah. It was bouncing out. Okay. Gotcha.
So a little bit about me. I grew up in a small town in Northern California, and my whole, sorry, I got to do this. My whole mantra is from picking peaches to private jets. So as you know, I fly on a private jet to business back and forth throughout California, throughout the United States. I have a law firm called Penney and Associates, injury lawyers out of California. We have 6 offices. And then Penney, Galbraith, Brannen is our national law firm. And so I grew up in a small town. I tell stories about how I grew up with nothing and then built. I'm not going to say the word empire, but I built some successful businesses and still do. And I still work hard at these businesses. And like today, I'm in Salt Lake City at 11 o'clock meeting. Then I got a 3 o'clock, and then I've got a 6 o'clock, and then I'm off to Southern Utah for a meeting tomorrow morning, then to LA, then back to Sacramento. That's just a typical day for me. Run. So that's kind of how I grew up. I grew up on a small farm. My dad was a police officer and a farmer. And I picked peaches from age 14. I started picking peaches and was excited about that. And I loved the job picking peaches and worked on all these fruit farms. And then now I'm in a private jet. So that's the 30-second story.
That's awesome. Thank you, Fred. And Fred, I just want to say to the audience, this is incredible. Fred, I call Fred up to check to see where he's at. And he goes, Tony, I'm just getting off the jet. So I'm around a lot of wealthy people, but just to hear that one line, you don't hear it that often. So that's pretty cool. So Fred was awesome. Literally getting off the jet, his own jet. And hopefully when he gets back to the office, we'll see a picture of it. It's incredible investment. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but now we're en route. So I thought this was kind of cool to see this way. And Fred, just to let you know, we had Dr. John DeMartini here. Here we go. All right, we're back with Fred. Fred is actually back. He's in his Utah home. We got a better signal here. So Fred, I was just saying how cool it was that you were getting off your jet. And one of our superstars from The Secret, Dr. John DeMartini, was on the show. And he lives on a boat called the World. So we actually did the interview from his cruise ship. This boat's special. Like, believe me, I'm a big cruise guy. This boat was 20 years ago. They made a big deal about it. like you can buy a condo, or I think they call it a condo, on the boat. There's only like 100 people that live there, and you just sail around, just keep sailing around the world, and that's your home. So we did the
Wow.
interview from there. So this is cool. I got almost a jet interview. I was pretty close.
Maybe
Half a
next
car
time.
interview.
Well, I'll chat with you while we're on the plane landing. It was actually, listen, if those of you who know the West Coast, I flew out of Sacramento, California to Salt Lake City, and it was just about a 55-minute flight. If you know that, that's going across a couple of states. It's fast. And from jumping on the stairs to getting off the stairs. And I'm going to, later on in our podcast, we'll discuss why I think buying a plane is one of the best investments you'll ever make.
Absolutely. I got a question dedicated just for that for you, Fred.
Good.
Okay.
Good.
All right,
Good.
Fred. So let's jump on to your story real quick. Well, actually, take your time. So where were you originally from?
So this is what I like to say a little bit. So I was born in Los Angeles area, and my father decided to move us up north of Sacramento, between Lake Tahoe and Sacramento, in the small farm community, because he wanted to raise us boys in a way that he was raised, which is kind of in the country. And he believed that it would bode well for the 4 boys that he had. There was 4 of us boys. And it was the best thing that ever happened, is to stick us in the country. When I was beginning of 5th grade, I moved to the country, and that's how it all started. Now, let me tell you a story of how I grew up and how this put me where I am. I like to tell this story. So as I started to grow up, I had three women in my life that were important. People don't realize, you always talk about the dad, and my dad, by the way, the local small fire departments named the Frederick Penney Jr. Memorial Fire Station. It's got my dad's name on it. So my dad's gets the accolades. But let me tell you who were the 3 most important people that helped raise me to become a successful entrepreneur. And that were my grandma, my mother, and my other grandmother. Let me tell you really quick about my dad's mom, the grandma, how she affected me and brought me up and taught me to be an entrepreneur. She was part American Indian. My heritage, believe it or not, as much as I look the way I look, is American Indian. She's a Chippewa out of Missouri, and she had a rough life growing up. My dad, she was a single mom raising 2 kids by herself in the 40s and the 50s. And my dad was born in the 30s. And my dad remembers sleeping out in the car, out in front of bars, and they didn't have a place to stay many times. And what I learned from that grandma, and she would come stay with us, is I learned perseverance. Because you know what? She never became successful, quote, in the world success. She never did anything elaborate. She struggled and had issues much of her life. But you know what? She constantly persevered and just kept going forward. So I learned perseverance from her. The second thing I learned from my mother is my mother was taken out of Los Angeles, and my dad drug her up to the country, and she cried. But she was a Southern California girl, loved Southern California, was a city girl. She said she cried for 2 years while she was up there. But you know what? She was very, very sweet. And she was a very, very successful mother. She sacrificed for us. She did all kinds of stuff, and she taught me to love and to care for others. And that's what she taught me. Now, I'm going to jump to the third and probably a very important woman in my life, which was my mother's mother, Myrna Davis. She grew up in Washington, and I'm getting to this, and you're like, why does this matter? You're going to see why. And then she was one of the first women in Southern California to start her own supermarket. The Davis Market is what she taught, is what she learned. And my grandfather, everyone thinks, oh, it's your grandfather ran it. This is in the 1940s and 50s. No, she ran the store, and he would go out and buy, purchase, and work at the back end. She worked the employees, she worked the customers, she ran the money, she did everything. And she learned an awful lot about entrepreneurship during that time period. And when she retired, she came and basically lived by us with my grandpa. And she was always around me as a young kid growing up. And here's the important thing. The one story I always say, how what she taught me, and this illustrates it. I loved basketball, Tony. I loved to play basketball. And I was on the high school basketball team. And as I came home one day, I always say, freshman year, I believe it was the beginning of my sophomore year, we lost the game to a very good team. And my grandma said, hey, how was the game? I said, oh, we lost. And she said, oh, well, why? I said, well, they were better than us, quicker than us. And then she said, well, why are you better and quicker? I said, well, I don't know, Grandma. And then I started giving excuses. She said, well, why aren't you better and quicker than them? Why don't you practice more? Why don't you? She would never let me make an excuse for not becoming successful and not winning. And she always would be that way and make me frustrated, until finally I just got frustrated. And she turned to me and said the following: Freddie, and she's the only one that used to call me Freddie, one of the two people in my life, my aunt, my grandma. Freddie, you can do anything you want in this life. If you want to be the president of the United States, just go be the president of the United States. The only thing holding you back is you. And that has been the mantra of my life ever since then, is never give up. And the only person holding people back is themselves. And that's the foundation that I was taught and I began with wonderful women in my life that helped build me to who I am when it comes to entrepreneurship and becoming a successful lawyer.
Thank you, Fred. Fred, I just want to step back. So your dad was a firefighter?
He was a police officer.
Oh, police officer.
And a farmer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
you actually, you had a
Marine.
taste of city life too. Like you grew up in LA for a little bit before 5th grade, right?
No, I was two years old when they left. And then we moved to Sacramento. I'm going to call the suburbs, for only a few years. And then they put me up at the beginning of my 5th grade. I was up in the country. I mean, we're talking dirt roads, 650 population, very last, place. It was a small gentleman's farm. I always call it, 10 acres with my grandma there. And we had a cow. We had a couple cows. We had, chickens, gardens, trees, everything. We lived on the land, and that's what we did.
How long did you live on the farm for?
Well, my parents just sold the place about in the 1990s. So all the way, they had the place until the 1990s. So all the way until I was in law. After I went to law school, the family was still there. Everything. I pretty much remember most of my life there on the farm as a country boy. And that's what kind of gave me that, instilled in me that hard work ethic, right? I got to tell you let me give you an anecdotal story about that. So I have a controller and I have my own in-house tax accountants that work for me, right? And the controller that runs our department is a guy by the name of Glenn, who I grew up with, right, in this little small town. And he's now a tax accountant. And I remember we were having an issue with some big businesses, and it was a big high profile meeting. And as we were walking out of that high profile meeting, and I apologize for saying this, but it is true, he kind of mumbled under his breath, trailer trash, and just in a derogatory way. And I turned to him and I said, Glenn, you lived in a single wide trailer. We used to stay the night. He goes, yeah, that's right. I guess I grew up in a single wide trailer. I said, don't forget where you're from. We're single wide trailer people. And that's where we grew up. He goes, yeah, not only even a double. We didn't even have a double wide. It was a single wide that he grew up in. And we had some wonderful times sleeping overnight and staying in that single wide trailer out in the country that his family grew up on. He grew up with a mother with, they had 5 children, and she was single because his dad died early. So that's how we grew up, right? And that was the toughness of it. And my dad, by the way, was also a Marine, fought in Korean War, Purple Heart, Bronze Star. He was a very successful man in that realm. And so, but we never had that much money. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, took care of us, and we lived on Dad's police officer salary.
What was it like growing up on a farm, though? Because I'm sure you had access to all this open land, right?
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. It was only 10 acres. I'm going to call it a gentleman's farm, but there was open acreage.
Only 10 acres. I'm from Philly. We live in a 0.02 acre house.
Yeah. No, this is small, but the neighbors had 80 acres, right? And the other one, so everyone had these small farms, and it was a life that was simple. And maybe I'll jump into a little bit of it now. As I talk to people about how to become successful in business and as an entrepreneur, I always say it's easy for me to become successful. And I say more easy than others. And the reason why is I'm okay on not living on anything or living with very little, because that's the way I grew up, right? And so for people that always have to have things, I don't need to have things. And I'll get into that in a minute, and remind me, and I'll push off there. But that's a very important thing that I learned growing up is I didn't need much. I didn't have much. And quite frankly, for much of my early life, I didn't, right? And that was the great part about it. The great part about it too was not only learning to work hard, but at age 13, 14, my dad says it's time for you to go out in the real world and get a job, right? So I went out in the world and started picking peaches at the Vega Ranch, which, by the way, they did a documentary thing on me about a week ago. And I went back to the ranch, and we videoed me going in and around the places where I was, and the old peach farm, and not all of it's there, but there's a peach farm next to it. I walked through it, and great memories of working from age 13, 14 there, picking peaches and plums and pears, and picking zucchini squash for the little fruit stand. And that's what I grew up doing, from picking peaches to private jets, right?
By the way, Fred, in honor of you, I already knew that part of the story. I just want to say I'm drinking peach tea today because
Attaboy.
that I got and I saved this one from where was it? Georgia. I think it was Bigelow Farm. They have like a big peach farm or something over there. We went a few while back, and I saved it for you. So
I love peaches. I love peaches, man. Unfortunately. Yeah.
they're good. They're good for your health too, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Frederick, Fred, how was so growing up on the farm? Like, was there a lot of struggles? Can you maybe tell us a little about some of the struggles you had? And the reason I'm going through this is because your first job was working with the peaches and on the farm and stuff. But I want to kind of build a picture of your entrepreneurial journey, and I like to be very honest with the folks to ensure that they know that we just don't become a successful entrepreneur just like out of a hat, like it's just out of nothing. It's not spontaneous. Oh, here you go, and you're a success. There's a journey. There's a path you got to go through of learning about different experiences. So maybe if you could tell us a little bit more about that journey.
Let me walk you through very briefly how that happened. So as I went through grammar school and high school, undergrad, et cetera, I was lucky if I got a C. I was a C student, C- student. And I started to pick it up a little bit, but I was never the brightest individual. And even though I had a lot of, I call business sense, natural, I'm going to say entrepreneurial sense and stick-to-itiveness, I was never the smartest guy. I was always, if I was lucky, I was middle of the class. And my mom had to start to help support the family, work part-time as a secretary for the school district out here in the country. And I remember as I graduated grammar school and then high school, first of all, the teachers were surprised when I got into college and came to my mom and said, he made it into college. I was lucky I got out of high school, right? And I was an athlete, but I did not like school. And as I went to law school, undergrad school, then law school, it was even more shocking to all these teachers that this guy actually made it to college, let alone law school. And as I graduated from law school, and the reason I did that is my dad always, I have an older brother that's a successful judge, by the way, he's a judge. And he kind of set the thing. He says, I'm going to go to law school instead of be here on the farm. And I told my dad, I want to be a rancher, farmer, and I loved cars. I wanted to be in, a wrecking yard. I want to own a wrecking yard. And he said something to the effect this one day. He said, son, all I know is at the end of the day, everyone's laying on the ground and there's one person standing holding the money, and that's the lawyer. So I think it's better you become a lawyer. And I'm like, well, he goes, you can own all the ranches you want. I'm like, okay. And by the way, we do own 2 ranches. So that's true. So as I went forward, of course, I'm not going to get into my personal life, but I married a wonderful woman who helped support me, who's a nurse and put me through law school. And but that's another story in itself. But what I learned is these 3 things. And we're going to start with these 3 things and move forward. If you learn these 3 important words, your success rate will be extremely high. Again, 3 words, and bizarre as it sounds, these are the only 3 words you need to remember. And those 3 words are success, resist, and resist. Those three things are the most important thing in the world, are the three things: resist, resist, resist. Now, what do I mean by resist, resist, resist? Here's the story. As I started, okay, first of all, I don't believe in failures. And people always say, well, tell me about the things that you failed, or tell me what you would redo in life, Frederick, if you had something to redo. The answer is I would redo nothing. And I have never failed. I will repeat that. I have never failed. How have I not failed? Because I see those as experiences, not failures. Success is a journey, right? It's not a destination. And as we continue to go forward in life, and that's the way I did that, is I decided that I was not going to be a failure. I don't believe in failures. So as I succeeded in life, because what I was doing was learning and gaining experiences rather than failing, I learned those three most important things. The first thing is, as I got an internship at this law firm, and there was four of us. I wanted to be a power lawyer. I always wanted to be a power lawyer. I wanted to be a trial lawyer. And what I did is, there's either three or four of them. I'm not quite sure exactly how many of them there were. And then what I did is applied. I went to work there, and out of the four of us, they picked three. Guess which three they picked, Tony?
You.
Not me. No,
Not you?
not me. No, they picked, out of the four of us, they picked three, and guess who was the one that didn't get picked for the job?
Wow.
Frederick Penney. And what do people think automatically? And what did the family think? Oh, it's a failure. I did not see it as a failure. I saw it as an opportunity. And it was an opportunity for me to succeed. And guess what? I look back at that, what people call a failure, which I call an experience. And if I would have been given that job, I would have never started my own law practice 31 years ago and be where I am. I would not be there. So there are no failures. There's only experiences that we learn, and that was not a failure to me. So as I built this practice in California, as I built this practice, I remember the three most important words: resist, resist, resist. After about 4 years, Tony, I started making money. I started doing really well. I hit some verdicts. I was on television for some verdicts. And it's like, wow, this young punk kid is beating these big law firms and these lawyers, at either trial or getting good settlements. And what I did is I took that money that I made, and my friends were building big houses and buying Ferraris and doing whatever they wanted for instant gratification. I took that money and invested it and bought companies, built companies, bought stocks, did all types of things that I could in order to build my portfolio instead of spending it. And that's how it all began.
But how did you do that, Fred? Like, that's not easy to avoid the temptation when you got all this money coming in and you started from nothing. Like most people, what they'll do, they'll go out and they'll start buying crazy stuff. They'll go out and partying and drink all their money away and just completely disintegrate their life. How did you avoid that? And there's a lesson here. There's a golden lesson behind all this. Can you explain to someone, if you had a methodology of how to avoid the temptation of being out there and splurging?
Yeah, for me, it was pretty easy. And that's why I brought that up earlier, because I grew up with nothing. And so it was easy for me to have nothing. So for me, things did not matter. Believe it or not, they do matter. And I love the entrepreneurship and I love investing. So that's why I say, if you remember the three most important words, which are resist, 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 then I got to walk. Then if you can resist, then you can succeed by investing in other types of businesses. So sorry, I'm gonna walk down here and sit down there.
Take your time.
I'm near the kitchen, man. I don't want to be near the kitchen.
Okay.
So I've learned to.
Are you in the closet?
No, I'm down by the front yard. It's a 3-story, so I can go out to the. I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you part of my house later as a very interesting thing that, Tony, I have told nobody, but I'm gonna tell you personally. And don't let me forget, it is something that is is very interesting that I've shown nobody. There's a few that know, but I'm going to show it to you. So remind me at the end, okay?
Well, keep in mind, Fred, there's about probably 1 million plus people that could potentially watch this.
Good. You're going to see it, and it's going to be interesting.
Okay.
So that's how I did it. But it wasn't just that. It was resisting to do all that stuff. But I can. It was easy for me not to spend money. So I paid my house off. I paid off my cars. I paid everything off. But here's the thing. I always say, everybody's on a different rung on the ladder, right? And I was saying just the other day, as you get higher up the rung, those rungs are further apart. I'm telling you, it's more difficult to go to the next level. But don't forget this, everything I say applies to you no matter what rung you are on the ladder. And so what I did is everyone goes, oh, well, that's a great idea, Fred. And I'm glad you're able to invest in these businesses. And I can talk in more detail about that in a minute. But what I turn to them and always say is, oh, really? So how long did you do that, resist and stay in this 1,900 square foot home and in a humble area, not poor, but just, I'm going to say middle class to maybe a little lower middle class? How long did you stick to that when you were making all kinds of money? Oh, a year or two. Tony, guess how many years I did that and stuck in that little house? 10 years.
Wow.
10 years I stayed in that place and invested. So I had 10 years of profits I was pouring in to companies and businesses and investments, and it just paid off. And so it's not just building successful law firm, because I built it. I put money into the law firms and the national firm, Penney, Galbraith, Brannen, that were in 46 states in that firm. But I built other companies, radio stations, property management, fast food restaurant chains, entertainment business. Believe it or not, even I invested, that does very well, a company that does compacted. They do the big shredders, compactors in the supermarkets and stuff like that, and that's stuff like that I do. So there's 100 different things that I diversify in because it's easy for me to resist, right? I want a new jet, but I'm not getting one. That'll be my third one. I want a bigger one. I still have a big one, and it's plenty, but I guess I got to get up to Grant Cardone stage, but I'm not going to get there, right? No, I just can't get there.
I interviewed a guy, his name is Rami El-Batrawi, earlier this year. And Rami was the right-hand man for Adnan Khashoggi back in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
And he just got this new jet. I'll show you afterwards, but it's just incredible. I mean, it's like there's like 2 or 3 of them in this world. I mean, I think you would appreciate that. It's that
yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over
no,
you, but that different world.
I land my plane just,
yeah,
as fun.
Different world. I'm telling you, you think, oh, that's great. Man, you fly in a plane. When I flew into Van Nuys the other day, and they parked me right next to Floyd Mayweather, and then they parked me. We were parked near Taylor Swift. There's all types of people you're parking your plane next to. You go, I guess I do need a bigger plane. But anyway, that's kind of how I started building my life as an entrepreneur and as a business person.
Fred, I just want to walk back, because your superpower where you first got started was the legal. So how long did you have the legal practice for before you started buying different businesses, kind of like the methodology used by sharks on Shark Tank?
Bob, I always say it's about 3 or 4 years is when it started to hit. I remember the first time I did really well on a case, and I hit a case and settled it. It didn't go to trial, and my income that I made on that was $5,000. It was an exciting time, and I went home and took my wife to dinner, and so it started the 5,000 to millions, right? But in fact, we just settled a case out of Riverside for just under 15 million the other day. So that's the realm that we're working with now, as compared to, hey, I got $5,000 and my wife and I went to dinner. So I started building Penney and Associates 31 years ago. And what I found out is it's an entrepreneur thing. People don't realize you're a businessman first or businesswoman, you're a lawyer second. So a lot of times the lawyers are lawyers first and business people second. And that's why they have difficult times building their practice. So what I realized is the most difficult people to beat were the top trial lawyers for State Farm, Farmers, USAA, AAA, the top insurance companies. So guess what I did? I went out and took their people. I took the top trial lawyers and I said, I'm going to pay you more. I'm going to give you more incentive. I'm going to give you percentage incentives. And next thing you know, that's how the practice started building. And that's how we got top trial lawyers in our law firm.
That is incredible.
Mhm.
I love it.
I did. I love it. Hey, I'm going to go after the best people. And that's another story that we can get into, but I believe in investing in people first, businesses second. Where entrepreneurs make huge mistakes are they invest in a business. You do not invest in a business. You invest in people, right? You can have the best, Tony, you can have the best company in the world. And if you have people that aren't running it right, it's going to tank or it'll struggle. Or you could take an average business or even one that's below average and put top people in, and it's going to succeed. Or the odds of it succeeding are going to be pretty good, right? And that's what I do. I invest in people first, businesses second.
That's a brilliant point, and I like hearing that from someone like you, because you really, well, you made a lot of great points. I just want to go back to the entrepreneur part.
Sure.
And it's great hearing this from a legal person. We've had people from all different industries here. We had the co-founder of Reebok on here, et cetera. And hearing from a lawyer, because most people, when they say, what do I want to be in life? Right? The average person, there's like three major things. They're all jobs, by the way, right? Lawyer, doctor, and, some people could say, banker or whatever, but they're all jobs, right? Like you took it from an entrepreneurial perspective. Look, I'm not just going to have a job. I'm going to create something greater than that. So how did you get that entrepreneurial spirit? Was it something that came from as a youth? Did you have a lot of entrepreneurial jobs growing up?
The answer is both. I always say it's both. I think it's innate in some of us, quite frankly, Tony. I think there's some people that have more of an entrepreneurial spirit than others. It's just natural, but that doesn't mean you can't do it also. But I think part of it is I'm just by nature a very competitive person. I've always been competitive. So for me, whether it's on the basketball court or out on the farm or in the business realm, I love building businesses. I love winning. I hate to lose. I tell the story about in basketball, we were losing, and yet I was one of the better players, and I just didn't want to leave the court. So I was sick, so I had to throw off. So I ran off the court, threw up in the water fountain, and ran back on the court because I did not want to come out. I was so intense in winning, and I didn't want to lose that game. So that's kind of, I think it's both. I can't say it's just natural, and I can't say that it's built in. It's both. I think just some people, like anything, some people are better at sports naturally, right? And I think some people have it innate, but don't discourage it and say, oh, I don't think I have it. You can learn it and build it, right? And like I said, resist, and you can do anything, whether it's $100 or 10 million. Resist, right?
Fred, I just want to jump off to a different topic real quick before we get into the questions. First of all, what do you like to do for fun? Because it sounds like you're always super busy. How do you get to enjoy life? And second, if you don't mind me machine gunning your questions, I noticed on your Instagram page, you have pictures on your farm. I know you have two ranches, one of your ranches, and it looked like you were having a really good time. I saw a different Fred there. This is what I picked up. I saw a different Fred. You look so completely natural and built into that environment. Maybe that's what you like to do for fun. I don't know. Can you talk about both those questions independently, or maybe it's the same question? I don't know.
Great question, Tony. And I'm a little different than most. I'm going to tell you, I'm cut from a different cloth. Ready to hear this? And people can't believe this. I do not like to travel. I am happy on my swing that I make. By the way, the biggest business decisions I make are out on my 100 acres on my swing, next to my peach tree, and seriously, I got peach trees and 46 mandarin trees. And I sit there on that swing and I make the biggest decisions of my life and my company's lives on that swing. I'm happier there than I am going to Europe. My wife would love to go to Europe. I haven't been to Europe. Ready for this? I don't care to go to Europe. I could care less. And I'm weird about that. And I understand that I'm different. But what do I like to do for fun? I am happiest when I'm out in the country. We have a ranch. It was a former dude ranch, and we made it into a private ranch where we go up. We have hundreds of acres. It's got a mile of the river. It's got 2 lakes, homes. We have wranglers that run it. And I go up and sit. That's probably what you've seen on my ranch, you know, out on the grass, read a book. I fish. I'll fly fish. I like to fly fish. Sit there, and I literally will go around with the wrangler and say, okay, this needs to be done. That needs to be done. And that's joy for me. That's happiness for me, is simple life. See, I'm different. I mean, most people are like, I like to travel. I like to do this. No, I like to go out on and pick a peach, work out. The other day I was digging up, let's see, today's Tuesday. Monday, I was digging up a sprinkler and fixing a sprinkler in a pasture with cattle. So I'm getting on my jet, my private jet, but I'm fixing a sprinkler the morning before, right? But that's what I enjoy. That's my safety net. That's my time that I love. At times I'll take and drive my, by the way, brand new 2022 Bentley, and that's not a brag. I will drive out to the country where I grew up and just look at things and see where I grew up, the old post office, the old grammar school. And I always say to myself, you're still just Freddie. You're not anything greater than Freddie. You are just a young country boy. That's who you are. And don't ever forget who you are. I never forget who I am, ever. I'm still just Freddie out of the
Fred,
country.
sorry to interrupt you. Why is that important? Why is it, and this is a message for the audience, there's people that like yourself that have maybe came out of nothing. Like why is it important to never forget your roots?
Because people, once they become successful, sometimes they try to be someone that they aren't. And I don't apologize for who I am in the first place, Tony. I don't apologize for being a person that we'll talk about later. Branding, I'm totally into branding. My name is on everything. If I could put it on my underwear, I'd put it on my underwear. But branding is important. I don't apologize for that. I don't care if people think I'm stuck up. As you know, you've seen pictures. My jet has my name as big as possible on the tail, and it says Penney and Associates on it. And everywhere I fly, it's got my name and my company. But the simplicity of who I am, it still is within me, even though at times you can get a little bit caught up in it. I just don't let it get caught up. Some people think I do because of my name's ever, but I'm still Fred. Again, I'm Freddie from this little small town. And if you don't forget your roots, I think that's going to keep you grounded. And that's going to help you realize, doggone it, I'd like to have that new this or new that. Don't do it. Just resist. And what I do is I just try to buy businesses. I just literally made an offer on 2 buildings that I'm trying to buy properties, and the rent is just phenomenal. And it's existing, very successful businesses that aren't going to go out of business. And you know what? That's just more income on the outside, right? That's more mailbox money. And so I could go buy a bigger jet. I could take that money and buy a bigger jet, but I don't need a bigger jet right now. Maybe someday, but it's resist.
Fred, I'm just trying to put this all together. Like if you love the farm so much, you don't really like to travel. I know you love your job though, right? Is that the reason why you continued to do all this, to go on your plane and travel 3 different places in one day, even though you'd rather be on the farm doing that stuff? There's got to be a reason why you're keep doing it.
Yeah. Let me be clear about that.
Because you have the option to stop it right now.
Yes, I like to travel if it's on my own jet. I don't like to travel any other way. So, but I do like doing business. So it doesn't bother me to go and do business with my lawyers or my other companies in other states. I mean, I am visiting lawyers all over the country. I'm going to be in Atlanta. I'm going to be in Indianapolis. I'm thinking right now I'm going to be in Cleveland, and I'm going to be in Chicago meeting with my lawyers in a few weeks, right? So I just go fly and meet with them. So I love that because that's business, right? So I don't see that as travel. To me, I see it as enjoyment because I'm doing business. But if it's just going to be, I'm going to get on a plane and fly to Europe and go around and look at the sites for 20 days, 10 days, I've got 1 day and I'm ready to go home, one. So I told my wife she could just wait for the new husband after I pass away and she can take him on trips.
Incredible. All right. Thank you, Fred. Appreciate you humoring me with these questions.
Yeah, man.
All right, Fred. So we're going to move into the next round. Unless there's any other points you want to add to wrap up your story. Is there any parts on that?
No, there's a lot I can talk about, but we'll get into it in a minute.
Okay, cool. And yeah, I have a lot of questions that'll cover a lot of that stuff too. So let's start with your book. So I believe you only have one book right now, but if you want to talk about that or any other books I don't know about.
So it's a 3-book series called Goose, and I'm collaborating with Mark Victor Hansen, a friend of yours too. I love Mark. It's the first book, talks about they wanted to do a book, and they're collaborating with me, helping me do it. And I wanted to tell my story and help people be successful in life, right? And they started off with a story all about me and all me, Fred. And I said, you know what? I'm not comfortable with that. I don't like it. I don't want to do that. I don't want to talk Fred Penney this, Fred Penney that, even though you have to some degree. So we did a fictitious family and an individual by the name of William Collins. The story is about William Collins in his 75th birthday. Now I'm 59. So it's looking in advance what happens. So book 1 is William Collins, a very successful attorney businessman who talks about peaches and peach orchards and has an orchard. And then book 2 that's coming out within the next 5 months is going to be about William Collins going back to when he was a kid, in 5th grade, moving to the country. And then book 3 is about him building the law firms and his businesses. So that's kind of what the series is all about. And it is about William Collins, which you can maybe plug in a few things and might be familiar with a little bit about Frederick Penney's life, right?
Mm-hmm. And that's a
so
bestseller, that book, right?
Oh yeah, 5. It's not just, I hate to say it, but it's a lot of people say, oh, it's a bestseller on the Audible, but no, it was bestseller on paperback in 5 or 6, maybe 7 categories for a while, and bestseller I think in hardback too for a while. So no, it's not just a quick easy, let's just do a few Audible books. No, it's sold a lot of paperbacks and on Amazon. So it's on Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
That's your main books though, right?
Yeah, I did another little one a long time ago, but we don't need to get it, called Penryn Boys. It was a fun one I did probably 15 years ago. A novel about growing up in Penryn, but this one's going to kind of push it a little closer, and it'll cover some of the same stuff. Book 2, which will come out, which will be Goose, and then it'll have a number 2 hanging out from the O's. So you'll see Goose 2, Goose 3, and then it'll be a series. You can buy all 3, and then maybe someday it'll be a movie, right?
Why did you call it Goose though?
We talked about, it was actually my publisher that said, look, you're like the golden goose. and I said, and so they started saying, we're going to do the golden goose. And then the next thing you know, they said, Fred, let's just do a goose. And you could see the cover of it. It's got, you think if I was smart and if I was in my studio, you'd be able to see it in the background. Yeah, but it's gold. It's gold, right? It's gold, right? And so it's kind of you're supposed to understand it's the golden goose by looking at the gold.
No, I really like the cover. I'm an author first before anything, a writer.
Right.
I want, and I have a publishing company, so I got to say that's beautiful design that he did. We're going to talk about that in a second. But Fred, you could be the next John Grisham. Who knows?
I don't know. I'm just Freddie, right? From the country, right? Just Freddie.
Folks, check it out. That's book's called Goose, and it's produced by the Mark Victor Hansen Library. Next question I have for you in regards to that, actually. So yeah, Mark is a great friend. Mark's a great guy. Why do you like working with Mark Victor Hansen and Mark Victor Hansen Library? And before you answer that question, folks, Mark Victor Hansen he's got the record pretty much for nonfiction books. He wrote The Chicken Soup for the Soul, co-author with Jack Canfield. And he's got the record for New York Times. I think he's up to 59 or something like that. It's just incredible. #1 New York Times bestseller. So yeah. Mark Victor Hansen, awesome guy. What's your so again, the question was, why do you like working with Mark and the Mark Victor Hansen Library, his publishing company, which is doing incredible right now?
Well, I'm going to say this. It was a pleasure for me to have him pick me as one of the individuals he wants to help me with a book. He doesn't just pick anybody. And I'm not patting myself on the back. He is, that's like Kobe Bryant, Dr. J coming out and saying, hey, I want you to work with you on basketball, right? Or, Magic, anyone, any of those superstars, LeBron, right? And so I say, it was a pleasure to work with him and his staff. I've gotten to know he and his wife, Crystal, very well. My wife and I have dinner with him, and we've got a lot of stuff coming out in the future. But how do you say no to a superstar? I mean, how do you not have Mark Victor Hansen? That's the question I think you need to ask. Yeah. And it is, if you're lucky enough to be one of the individuals that he says, I want to write your story. And I want to help you write your story, because I author it too. I go through and do a lot of it with him, but they help me, and they do it through their system. But you don't say no. I mean, shoot. Why would you say no to him?
Yeah, you're right. Like, you're working with the top superstar in the nonfiction space. If you want to write a book, why would you not go with him? That's great point.
Yeah.
Thank you, Fred. All right, Fred, next question is about your radio show. So you have an amazing radio show called Radio Law Talk. I'd love to learn more about that. I think the audience would definitely appreciate that too, especially if they're interested in the legal aspects of business and all that stuff. By the way, folks, read the disclaimer that, if you want a financial advisor or an attorney or any other advice giving entity, Fred, am I saying this right? Please seek
legal counsel. Yeah. We're talking about general topics of law. Don't listen to us. We're not giving you counsel, right? So, and I'm not giving you financial advice either.
Right.
So
we got to say that with two of us,
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. So, like, you got all that podcast stuff. It's not just that. You have to understand this as a podcaster. So, don't forget, Radio Law Talk's also a podcast. So what I did is, through my work in radio, I decided to hook up with the best people. And about 6 years ago, a guy by the name of Cal Hunter, 3-time Emmy Award nominated producer / news anchor, and that's been on the radio for eons, approached me. He said, you know what? There's a huge opportunity in radio in the law, and not to make it boring. You go on there. Hi, my name is Fred Penney. We're going to talk about the law. It's like, can you turn off the radio fast enough, right? And so we came up with this concept together 6 years ago. Let's do a radio show with law, but make it fun, as we say, the most exciting, entertaining, and sometimes informative show on earth. That's exactly what it is. And we make it entertaining, fun. You laugh. We tell behind the scenes stories. The Johnny Depp thing, we cover stuff like that. Angelina Jolie, Brad Pitt, their argument and lawsuits going on. We handle a lot of the Hollywood high profile stuff, and we put a spin on it. And actually some off the wall stuff that you would have no idea. Like we just talked about, or we're talking about next week. That's every Saturday live, 9 to noon Pacific time. You can go to radiolawtalk.com. And see what stations it's on. And if not, it's live on our website. But we talk about, for example, a juror just got kicked off on a case that the defendant and this juror were making lovey eyes at each other. And the judge is like, hey, I don't like what you guys are doing. Each other smiling, winking at each other. And I think they want to date each other. And the judge finally kicked off the juror saying, you're flirting too much with the defendant. So there's stuff like that we talk about that's fun. And we have some wonderful sponsors along with us. We have a great time. 6 years. It's been going on. It's on our 6th year. And probably the second largest. We always say probably because who knows? I don't think anybody's even close to us. But as the second, there is one that's bigger, and we're going to take that one over eventually. But we're over 100. We're 120, maybe 130 radio stations. I don't know. It fluctuates, and my next goal is 230 to 330. Right?
Thank you.
Love it. Fun.
By the way, what is your specialty these days? I know you start out, I believe, auto insurance accidents, but I think that you're like at the level where you're doing pretty much anything, and especially for celebrities. Is that right? Or
Yeah. So what I do is we're a personal injury firm in California. Our national firm, we have partners in every state. So it's if you look up Minnesota, my name's not going to be on it. It's going to be our partner's name because I'm not barred in Minnesota or Arizona. It's my partner. But we have represented celebrities. I do represent NFL players, and you'll see why in a minute on that. But I TikTokers, Instagrammers, Twitter, YouTubers, we've represented them before and done some work for them. So again, we're based out of California, and we have an office down in Irvine and in Los Angeles off Wilshire Boulevard. So we're down in the heart of things there. And we're also in the Bay Area, down right next to the 49er Stadium in Santa Clara, Silicon Valley. So we're tied in pretty tight with that community. But generally, the California division's personal injury. Nationwide, we do personal injury nationwide, but there's other state, in some of our states we'll do some divorce and estate planning also, because we have multiple lawyers handling things.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Fred. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right, Fred. So I want to just finish up on the radio law talk. How do you become nationally syndicated? Like, how did that even work? And what's the significance of nationally syndicated? I've heard a few people that have nationally syndicated radio shows. I'm not a radio guy. I don't understand it. So can you explain that to the audience? I think that would be very interesting to know.
Yeah, let me talk to you podcasters out there. This is what I believe. And I truly think I'm right because I did it. I believe to have a podcast, you must, and I repeat that, must have at least one radio station tied to your podcast. That way you're live. Let's say you're in Sacramento, California. You get your podcast that you do and you put it in Sacramento, California on a radio station. So now you're a radio host and you're a podcast host. And that way you're covering both genres. Now, radio clearly is not what it used to be, but it's still pretty strong because a lot of the stations are now AM and FM at the same time. And so that's what I wanted to do. As I was doing a podcast, I said, no, I want to do a radio show first, podcast second. So if you've got a podcast, go to your local station, work with them. A lot of times you have to pay a little bit. It's not a lot of money, but you have to pay some to get your podcast on their station. And it started there. And then next thing you know, someone wanted my radio show. Next thing I knew, I hired a affiliates relations full-time guy. Full-time, he's an independent contractor, but he works for myself and a few other shows. And they go out and market our show. And that's how you do it. It just comes down to, and it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny, Tony. The first one I started with, you had to pay him to put your podcast on. And they came to me and said, "Oh, it's time to pay up again." I said, "I'm too big. I don't need to pay you anymore." and they said, well, you still should pay us. I said, "Pull me off." Sure enough, they pulled me off, and its competitor picked me up. So there you go. And because it's radio law talk is doing so well that in the markets, what's happening is my competitors or other people are advertising on those radio stations around my show. And so I tell my affiliate relation tells me that. It's like, guys, you're going to get personal injury lawyers and lawyers wanting to advertise around Fred Penney's radio law talk. Why wouldn't you put it on? Right. And that's what happens. And that's how you want them, that is the radio stations, to want you because of advertising. That's what they want. They want advertisers. But as a personal injury law firm, a personal injury lawyer, and I have two co-hosts. One's a family law lawyer and one's a former prosecutor for the district attorney's office, and an individual that also is now a public defender. So he's phenomenal. And he's, by the way, an actor in LA. He's been on a number of commercials, and he's the voice on a number of video games, and he is a lawyer, and he is my co-host. So it's a great show, radiolawtalk.com. Go visit it. But that's kind of how you do it. That's how I found it works for me.
Fred, I'm curious. I'm sorry, I'm speaking out of ignorance, but do they, when you get to that point, right? Like, are you doing it to make money? I mean, are you making money from sponsorship, or is that just the radio company itself that makes that money? Or like, because you said you don't have to pay, right? You don't have to pay,
right?
But
right.
like where does the money angle come at that point? Is it just more about branding? That's why you do it?
Yeah, good question. The answer is yes. You do make money. Do you make a lot? No. Where you make the money is what's called 3x5, and they want me to do that. 3x5 means, and yes, what happens there, you do trade. The radio station, like top of the hour is the news, and then it's 6 minutes. So 3 minutes we get to do our advertisement, and well, let's back up. 1 minute is the news. 2 minutes they get advertising, and 2 minutes we get to put our advertising on. So that's how you work it. So you get advertising time, and so it's nationwide. So I tell my sponsors, we're going to nationwide. You're going to be heard during that time period on all these stations, and then they have the same thing locally. But what happens there is I just spaced what you were going to tell me. So what we were talking, I just threw a
yeah, I was talking about money and radio, because from a podcasting perspective, a lot of podcasters don't know about radio. They think it's dying.
Right. So that's how you make the money. But what I was talking about, I remember now, it's a 3x5.
Yeah.
You really make the money when you're 5 days a week, 3 hours a day. And guess what? That's what they want me to do. But should I give up my law practice and my other businesses to do radio 3 hours a day, 5 days a week? It's going to take up all my time. It's just not lucrative enough for me, unless you're a Rush Limbaugh, right? Or something like that. But it's just not worth it financially. So I do it more for fun, and I do it. It builds the brand, right? It builds Frederick Penney's name, the brand.
Do you think radio will still be around? Like, with all this podcasting starting to accelerate exponentially, do you think radio will still be around in maybe a few years?
I think it is, because I think they've got a pretty strong lobby. But do I think is it slowing down? Yes, it is. But actually, it did an uptick recently. But I think FM's going to be there. AM's going to struggle a little bit. I know why, because, by the way, electric cars, there's interference with AM stations somehow on electric cars.
Wow.
And they're trying now to get it so all electric cars do not have AM radio in it. And when that happens, I think AM's gonna struggle a little bit. But it's still pretty good size. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's not, don't think that's your whole future in life, but it's an added addition, right? It's an added addition. I don't rely on Radio Law Talk to be rich, right? Or to make money. If it does, it's a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Fred. Great response. Fred, I wouldn't be complete if I didn't talk at least one question about your law. Maybe what are some lessons you can teach us about the law from U.S. perspective, I guess, but general as possible to comply worldwide?
Wow, that's a huge question, and that's a 10-hour discussion.
Yeah,
but
maybe 1-2 minutes.
Yeah. I'm really quick because it's boring. Let me tell you, law is boring. And I'm going to be honest with those of you that have social media. Listen to you lawyers that are out there doing social media. I'm not going to give you all the tips because I'm beating you really bad at it right now. The tip is stop talking about the law. It's boring. Nobody wants to hear about it. And go look at a lawyer's thing. He says, I see him pop up all the time. Talking about the Jones versus Jones case where remember when they got the auto accident, he turned left and right, and we won big for snoozer. No, skip. Nobody on Instagram, YouTube is going to watch that. Tell them about your life, and they'll naturally follow who you are and what you do. So I build Frederick Penney's brand and about me. You look on my Instagram, because I push Instagram more than anything. Show me how many law things I've got in there. I bet when you looked at it, Tony, you saw very little about law.
Just like your branding stuff. I saw law by you being in the office. That's it.
That's it. But you see who I am. You'll see turkeys or a deer or what I'm doing, or like I say, brand your name. And I show all the different branding. We're on, in some colleges, we sponsor some college basketball. You'll see my name on the bottom, on the floor of a college, or all over the place, So, but don't talk about, even if you're a realtor, yeah, okay, I can watch so many homes. That's kind of cool, but you got to make it about yourself too. They got to get to know you, right? They know Fred Penney, the person, the lawyer, not Fred Penney, sitting in an office all day long and talking about cases, snoozer, you have to ask yourself, would you like to sit there and watch that? Mm-mm.
Fred, I'm I grew up in academia, so I was a professor for 10 years. And like you, we both have different doctorate degrees. I think this is also the
Right.
curse of the professor too, and the financial planners. Like they do the same thing that you're talking about. And I think that's where a lot of them go wrong as well. I agree with you. Like what, but here's the problem in academia, whether you teach in finance or legal or whatever, we're stuck with what they give us. That was at least my problem. So I had to teach these giant textbooks of just some stuff were really boring. And like, how do I make this fun when I have to teach this curriculum? Like if they don't learn about it, the students will complain. Well, you didn't teach us, right? So we're caught in this kind of catch-22 as professors. Maybe you can speak to what you just said to apply it to professors in that particular situation.
Yeah, let's hit pause for a second. Can we hit pause?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hit pause.
Okay, so Fred, we're back with Fred, folks. Fred Penney, and we are just talking about lessons from the law perspective. So we're going to move into the next question because Fred is on the road again. My man.
I tell you, Tony, let me tell you the type of person, we're just getting to know each other. You are a real professional by, understanding that professionals are busy, right? And I wish I had more time to sit down and I know privately, and we're not going to bring this out, that there's emergencies that I have to run to, and I had to run to this emergency during our podcast. And so I really appreciate you for doing that. And there's no one better than people that understand, right? And it just happens, right? Things happen.
Yeah, and Fred, I just want to your point, like you're a genuine guy. I really like the fact that you've done this on a whim for me, and like we're going to build you a great stage on Clubhouse on Friday night, but you did this as a last minute thing, and I appreciate you. We knew each other for about a year and a half in Clubhouse, but so thank you, man. I appreciate you. And you're right. Flexibility. That's the number one thing with being a successful business person. You got to be flexible.
Yeah. It's not like I wish I had more time in life, right? I tell you how you're going to be successful, and you will be I'll tell you one way to become a billionaire. And if you take this and become a billionaire, you give me 10%. Okay. And this is it. If you could find a way to have people buy time in their life and literally like, okay, you can get 27 hours, then you're going to be a billionaire. So you let me know when you can figure that one out.
Yeah, if you make an invention that will save someone time, like when they invented the washing machine or the dishwasher, like it saved women tons of time. People, homemakers, right? Same thing.
Yeah, that's exactly it. But go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Fred. All right, next question. I think you'll love this. Maybe 1 or 2 minutes each of these questions, and we'll be on good time. Why should someone build a personal brand before a business brand? Now, before you answer that, I want to preface this. We've had, the co-founder of Reebok on here, Joe Foster. We've had a guy named Ed Connors who took the Gold's Gym and took it to the highest levels, the biggest gym franchise in the world on here. So many others like him, right? But they focused on their brand, Gold's Gym or Reebok, not the person until later on in life. And it made me think when I interviewed them, there's other people out there that never even get to that point, right? They had their own reasons, but most people, the whole life, they'll just go brand, and forget about their personal brand. Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm a little different. And so that's why I'm saying I'm I'm cut from a different cloth. I'm a belief of you build the most important brand is you. Tony, you are your brand. No matter what business you build, you're going to sell it someday. But is your name still out there, right? And so as you build your other brands, you'll see my brands aren't as successful or on social media as my personal brand is, because everything I do, or most things I do, my name's on it somehow or somewhere. And so I believe in building personal brand first, business brand second, because once you sell your business, your brand's gone, right? And again, don't get me wrong. That doesn't mean don't build your business brand, but I focus on your personal brand first because it's always you. And think about this. And the unfortunate day that we all have to do is die. When that happens, if I have a grandson or a grandson that's named Frederick Penney, which by the way, it's up to $40,000. I'm offering my daughters and daughter-in-law to name one after me. And if that person can take over the brand, right? Like Hilton, think of the Hiltons. Our LA brokers are Hilton Highland. Plug for them. They're real estate brokers. But guess what? It's the Hilton name that helps build that. And it's the brand, it's the hotel brand, but the fact that it's a Hilton, that brand is so well known, the name Hilton, they built it after their last name. So the brand, everything they put their name on, right? It does well, or generally does well. So that's why I say build your brand first, your name. I'm a name builder first.
I agree with you 100%. All the stuff that I've learned the past 2 years amongst, being great company like Mark Victor Hansen and Sharon Lecter, my mentor, it seems that's the number one way to do it. Right.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. Because what happens when you sell the business like Joe Foster did? He sold it for $4 billion, Reebok, right? And I think it was 1989 or 99, something like that. But then, you still have to explain to people who you are. Right. If you
Exactly.
want to accomplish something else besides that business.
Yep. Let's think of Hilton, right? Hilton's just, you walk in and say you're Hilton. That's all you got to say.
Yeah. Thank you, Fred. Appreciate that. Fred, next question. Why do many co-founders of great companies neglect to do this? Well, I guess we already covered that. I mean, unless you want to add another point. That was a complimenting question I added.
No, let's move.
Yeah, move on to the next one.
Next one.
Yeah. All right, great. Sorry about that. All right. So next question: should great people delegate everything that they are not good at? Now, I want to just preface this one also. Dr. John DeMartini from The Secret, who was on here, that's one of the things he does. He said, I delegate everything, every single thing in my life. I don't even drive. I don't do anything except research, speak, and write. I think he said, right? Three things. And he travels around the world. That's all he does. He said, I don't want to do anything else. And like, he has a great point, but I like your way too. Like I heard the story about you with your fast food store, digging out weeds because none of the workers want to do it. And you took the gloves and put them on and you sat there for 3 hours with your wife and pulled it out. I'm kind of like that too, because I like to remind myself of my roots as well, that I can do these things. So of course, delegate, but also come back and so what are your thoughts on that, Fred? Should you delegate every single thing?
I think both. And so the answer is Vince Imhoff. I'm gonna throw out a name. He's a mentor and a very close friend of mine. Imhoff and Associates, one of the most powerful, successful criminal lawyers in the United States. 50 states he's in. And he said to me the other day, I was in a meeting with him, and we're asking him how to do something. How do you do this? How do you do that? He looked at me and said, I don't know. And he's listed 3 names. This person, that person, this person. They know how. He goes, I just point the finger. So to some degree, you have to be that way. But again, I never forget who I am. I invest in fast food restaurant chains, or my companies invest in them. And the story you're telling is I showed up to one of the fast food restaurant chains that just opened. The drive-throughs were backed up for way long. And it had been like month 2 or month 3. And there were weeds like galore in the drive-through area, really high. Some of them 4 feet high. And I went in there and nobody knows who I am. And who was with me was the CEO president at the time. And we're the majority shareholders of this company. And I said, who's pulling the weeds? Oh, we can't get him to pull the weeds. Sure enough, like you said, we're there almost 3 hours. My wife and I and my daughter, by the way, we just flew in our private jet, and we pulled weeds for 2 to 3 hours, cleaning the thing up. And I remember people saying the best part is, oh, dude, that sucks. You can hear people saying, oh, that sucks. That guy's job sucks. And I loved it because I knew I had no idea who I was. Even the workers were like, what's this guy out there pulling? Well, they just thought it was some landscape company or something, right? But I was out there pulling weeds and telling people and to show people, look, and I got pictures of that. I keep pictures. I had said, take pictures of me pulling weeds and never forget who you are. If you don't ever be, that's never below you. It's never below us. Tony, if we want to be successful, nothing's ever below you. Doesn't mean you sit there and pull weeds. I'm not going to pull weeds the rest, the whole week. I'm losing money, but I'm going to do it. If it's something needs to be done, sometimes do it yourself, right? Just do it yourself.
Thank you, Fred. Great response. Fred, next question. What are the secrets to buying a portfolio of businesses and still manage to have free time? Because that's the challenge. That's a very big challenge.
That is a great question. I get asked that all the time. Again, I've mentioned it before. It's you invest in people first. In the law firms that I'm partners with nationwide, I work with one lawyer in each state. So I don't have to worry about the details. I worry about that one lawyer that I work with, and that lawyer has to work with the details. If I were the fast food restaurant chain that I help and we're actually the lawyers for, I work with one person, the CEO, president. I don't work with anybody else. So in order to make time to do multiple businesses and diversify, you must find good people and find that one person you work with and delegate it and let them handle everything below you. And that's why I'm able to handle more than one business and or more than one law firm.
This question actually ties back to the other question. So you do love the idea of delegating, right? In that case, you delegate it, but at the same time, you also agree with me a little bit where sometimes you just have to get a little dirty and go back to your roots. Sometimes you got to clean your own house, right? Just to remember where you came from.
Yeah, I told you the other day, before I got on the jet today, yesterday, I was fixing a sprinkler in my pasture. So, there you go.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Fred. All right, Fred, next question. How much time do you spend on just your businesses? Like if you can quantify that compared to all your other stuff you got going on. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out for the audience just to see if they wanted to be at this level where you're playing at, like how much time, if they did everything the way you did it the right way, how much time that they should be spending on their businesses?
I'm smiling because it never ends. I'm up at 5 a.m. almost every morning, sometimes 4, but for sure 5 a.m. From 5 to 6:30, I'm all on social media, pure social media. And I do my social media during that time. I'm neurotic about what gets posted. So I'm careful of making sure the posts are. I do get help in other areas of my social media, but I have to post it myself because I don't want anyone putting something on that's not me, right? So I get up at 5. I'm usually stop working. I'm going to say, let's say on it's not unusual for me to work till 10:30 at night. And don't forget, I also go to events. Pretty much, we have a luxury suite. We sponsor a lot of basketball. We sponsor events. I have to go to our luxury suite at the Golden One Center, which is the Sacramento Kings NBA team. And so I do PR there. So I am working nonstop. I'm going to say 5 to 10 constantly. It's constant.
7 days a week?
No, I never. Sunday is my day off. I will not. I'm a church guy. I believe in God. I believe in, and you need to make sure that whatever your God is or whoever it is, you need to find faith in God. And I truly am, and I'm a Christian. And I believe that, Jesus is the most important person in my life, but I'm not going to lecture people on their religion. Just find your religion, find your God, and that brings balance too.
So in a typical day, though, how much of that time is allocated to just the businesses portion? If in terms of percentage, 15%, 30%?
What of that time period that I said is my businesses?
Yeah, not the legal business, like your other businesses, the other business that you own, for example, fast food stores.
So it's hard to quantify. Let me give you an example. I'm flying in today and I'm doing both legal work and helping the fast food restaurant chain at the same time. We're talking about a legal case that's going on with them, and I'm meeting with the CEO, and we're going to discuss what and the lawyers and what the next issue is. At the same time, talking about the next 4 buildings that are being built. And I'm going out to one of the new ones that's opening up in a month that's almost completely built, and checking on that facility. But so I do multitask. And I do multiple things at once, so multiple businesses. At the same time, when I'm done talking to you, I might be talking to a lawyer out of Mississippi or out of New York. My lawyer's out of New York at the same time.
Thank you, Fred. Great response. Fred, why do you need a jet? Maybe 1 minute.
Great. The answer is No, that's a 20-minute discussion, but I'm not going to, it has been the best investment of my life. I've been able to do 10 times the amount of work that I was not able to do, because I don't care what people say. A lot of it is Fred Penney. And a lot of it, you can do all the Zoom you want, but until you walk up and shake their hand and look at their face, things get done much quicker and more efficiently when I'm in people's face. And I truly believe that. And I'm able to get around in one day and come sleep in my bed. I was just not too long ago, and I had to go from Sacramento to Medford, Oregon. Then I went over to Salem, Oregon, to Seattle, to Victoria, British Columbia, Canada, back to Seattle, and I was at home sleeping in my bed for all those business meetings. And there's something to be said about that, and keeping me alive long enough to continue these businesses, because you can't do it. The stress of an airport just makes it more difficult. And by the way, as bizarre as this sounds, people do want to be with successful people. And this is, a lot of people don't want to say this because, oh my gosh, that sounds bad. But, success breeds success, right? You have your private jet, you fly in your private jet. And I'm not talking chartering one. A lot of people charter. No, I have my own jet with my name on it. And that just people, hey, success breeds success. That's right.
Can you tell us a little about that jet experience? Like, is it a lot faster to get out of the airport than taking a regular commercial plane? And like, what's that experience like?
Yeah,
to get you to the different destinations?
Yeah. So what happens is I have my pilots there ready when I want, and I literally pull up onto the tarmac. The stairs are down. I get up on it. Sometimes I'm taxiing within 5 minutes. I go to what's called FBOs, fixed base operations. I don't normally fly into a normal airport like LAX. I'll fly into Van Nuys, Camarillo, other areas that are easier to access. And believe it or not, there's a rental car companies that have private jet rental car companies. They literally bring my rental car up to my jet. So as I get off the jet, they put the pilots put down my stairs. I walk right into the rental car. It's sitting there for me. They pull it right up. I get in, go do my job, pull my rental car up to the jet. They take it back. Everything is done for you in a speedy, quick fashion. So I can get stuff done very quick.
And they have private airports designated for jet owners all across the country, I imagine, right?
Thousands. I think there's 2,500 or something like that. Wow. Thousands. Like in Salt Lake, I did not fly into the Salt Lake airport today. I flew into a suburb of Salt Lake in their airport.
Wow. Interesting. Thank you, Fred. All right,
yeah,
Fred.
Fast.
That's amazing. As a fact, we could spend more time if you like it on Clubhouse.
Yeah.
I'll make this one of the top questions so we can focus a little more. All right. Thank you, Fred. All right, Fred, sure. I'm going to ask you template questions. The same questions I've asked to all the superstars on this podcast, most of them actually. So can one book change the world? So we figure about 30 seconds to a minute for each one. We'll make good timing. Can one book change the world?
Can one book change not the world, but one book cannot change the world, but can change an awful lot. So yes and no, but I'm going to say yes, it can change an awful lot.
Thank you, Fred. All right, Fred, next question. What role has networking played in your life?
100%. It is one of the most important things you can do is getting to know people like you and I. We can work together, right? The more people you touch, the more people you're able to work with and collaborate, right? Good minds. And I always say, hang around people that are positive. Hang around PMAs, positive mental attitude people that are going to help you succeed. People go, oh, well, there's one person that says, well, it's good to be around people that aren't gonna kiss your butt all the time. I said, you know what? I hear that all the time. People are going to be bad mouthness around the positive mental attitude people. That's what I like to be around. I always tell staff, they always say, sometimes I walk in, I have a problem. No, we don't. We have a challenge. What's our challenge? So we have challenges in life, but be around the PMA, the positive mental attitude people.
Thank you, Fred. Appreciate that, Fred. Next question. Along that same thread, is mentoring important, and who are some of your mentors?
Yes, and let me tell you this about mentoring. I always try to say this. I've had a couple of people flat out upset at me because I wasn't able to mentor them. Please remember, people who mentor that have become successful in business don't have all the time in the world. And there's hundreds of people asking them, maybe thousands, to mentor them. And there's only so much time. So remember that when you're asking someone to mentor you. And that's an important thing that I always remembered when I was being mentoring. And I don't have time to make the list, but here's the thing that I always learned about mentoring. I always gave back. I always gave back to my mentors, no matter what, and them want to mentor me more, right? Remember that. Give back to your mentors, because it makes them, I know that sounds bad, but it's a fact. It's a fact. You just need, these people are very busy. Make sure you help them too.
That's brilliant. So you definitely should get some kind of mentor if you want to be successful in whatever you do. Right?
Yeah, but be mindful of their time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Be mindful of their time.
Folks, and that's why a lot of successful people get paid that are mentors a lot of money per hour, because of the reason Fred just said. They're busy. They don't have to do this. One-on-one usually isn't the most effective way to make the most money in the world, but they do it because they want to do it. So you got to be prepared to pay. Thank you, Fred. All right. Great question. Great response. What are your favorite financial books, if any? Business, money?
No. I read almost exclusively, not quote financial books, but I know you've got one. I'm gonna have to read yours. But I like to read biographies. I like the Hilton. I read the Hilton biography. I read Marriott. It's one of my favorite biographies. I read about all the the Rockefellers. I've read all those books. Geez, I've read so many I can't even remember all the Nike story of Nike. All that, anything to do with a biography of a business person. That's what I've read. Period. That's all I read.
That's my dad does that. He loves
I know, I do.
I gave my finance books. He's like, what? But he'll read every single, like you did, like every single major corporation story. He loves that stuff.
I'll read yours for you. How's that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll send you a copy. For sure.
Good idea.
Okay. Next one is, do we need money to survive? Maybe
that's a good question. That's a hard one to answer, because obviously in the early days they didn't have money to survive. But I'm going to say this about money. Money can be a positive or a negative in your life. And it's okay to have, what I worry about society today is people that are wealthy or people that are successful are now becoming victimized as greedy and bad people. Money can be the root of all evil, or it can be the greatest thing in the world. So just so long as you have money and you do good things with it, and I'm not talking give it all away. I don't necessarily agree with that. But if you're still a good person and do good things, there's nothing wrong with money. So money can be a positive and not necessarily a negative.
At a basic level, though, all around the world, all the different poor countries and whatnot, someone needs money to get your basic essentials. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Or you do it in kind, whatever it is. You have to. Yeah, money's not. People try to make it a bad, evil thing, and I don't agree that it is. It's what you do with not just money, but anything in your life. So no, yes, money is part of life.
Thank you, Fred. As an extension of that question, finance, the science of finance, would you say that's necessary for everyone to learn?
Absolutely. You learn it yourself, but again, surround yourself with good people that understand it, know it. I surround myself with good people that understand finance and investments, et cetera, et cetera. Even who I think I know quite a bit, I still surround myself with people who are knowledgeable with that all the time.
Thank you, Fred. 3 more questions left. How important is having a purpose in business, and what is your purpose? So that's actually,
I'm going to say my purpose in business. First of all, my purpose in life in general is family, God, friends. That's the most important thing. Business and money is secondary to me. But yes, you have to have a purpose in business. You have to have a plan. Am I the kind of guy that has a full list on my refrigerator of my goals and plans? Believe it or not, I'm not one of those guys, even though I have them. But yes, you have to have a purpose. I agree with that.
Thank you, Fred. Two more questions. What would you like to accomplish in the next 10 years or so, and why? What do you want to do in the next 10 years? Where are we going here?
All right. Number one, I'm going to lose weight. That's number one. Simple things. So I want simple things. I'm going to lose weight. The second thing is I want to just, as bizarre as it sounds, and a friend of mine I talked to that I grew up with last night, and he said, Fred,
we're losing you. Fred, I'm going to hit the pause.
now.
Yeah. Yep, you're there. Go ahead, Fred.
Okay, so go ahead. So I was just saying that a friend of mine told me, look, it's never been about the money with you. It's about the game. And that's true. I love the game. The game of business is my passion. 10 years from now, the day I die or the week before I die, I'm still going to be doing business. I enjoy it. It's a game. It's my passion. I love it.
That's brilliant, Fred. And that makes me reflect on Dan Clark, a Hall of Fame speaker. There's only about 150 that's alive. There's been about 8 or so on the show. He said that he would want to die with a microphone in his hand because that's what he's built to do, speaking. And in your case, you're, as you said, you're a great business guy. So
yeah,
you would never retire, right, Fred? Like,
no, absolutely not. And people always tell me, aren't you going to retire? I say, no. Now, will I slow down a little bit? Yeah, I'll let I have some, my children who are in their 20s and 30s now, they'll start doing a little more work and probably they're picking it up a little bit.
Here we go, Fred. Last question. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Last question. What would you like to be your legacy to this world?
Don't forget, on your epitaph, on your grave, they only give you 2 lines. And the 2 lines are going to be feared God and loved his family. That's it. That's all I want.
I love it. Thank you, Fred. All right, Fred, again,
bro.
honor having you here, man.
Oh, sorry, dude.
Yeah, we got a great clubhouse stage, folks. Check it out. If you're going to be here it's Friday, October 21st, between 7 and 12 p.m. Eastern time. I run a room, and Fred's going to talk between 7 and 9, roughly speaking, p.m. Eastern time. He's going to be hanging out on stage. Great conversation. Going to be flowing. We're going to have an amazing panel. That's 2022, by the way, in case you're watching. It's 1,000 years in the future. So, Fred, before we close out, though, I want to hear from you. Any last-minute thoughts or anything you want to promote or tell people about what you're doing? The floor is yours, Fred.
Enjoy life. Thank you very much.
Fred.
Okay.
Fred, there we go. Fred, sorry.
Yeah.
So
yeah, just let's hang on a second. I'm almost there. It's this little canyon and we go down. And so wait till I'm going to stop here, then ask me that final question. You can edit it out, right?
Okay, here we go, Fred. So last minute thoughts. Go ahead.
Last minute thoughts. Hey, just enjoy life. Remember PMA, positive mental attitude. I appreciate you, man, Tony. Have a good day. I have nothing else to say. I said it all. I said too much. See you, man.
Fred, before we go, where can they find more information about you?
Go to my Instagram, Frederick Penney 1, FREDERICK PENNEY, and then 1. I'm always on there, and that will lead you to all my other social media sites and all my other businesses.
Thank you, Fred. Folks, don't forget to check out the book Goose as well from the Mark Victor Hansen Library. Appreciate you again, Fred. And I want to just close out real quick, Fred, if you could just wait for me in the green room as soon as I'm done. Folks, Dr. Anthony Criniti IV, also known as Dr. Finance. Thank you for listening to Dr. Finance Live podcast. This is the website, drfinance.info. I'm going to have this podcast posted there as well as YouTube. We're going to blast out to 20 plus major podcast directories. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe. And also check out Fred's book and his information as well on social media. One last thing, folks, if you're interested in learning about finance, The Necessity of Finance was my first book I wrote for my students. And then The Most Important Lessons in Economics and Finance 2014 was a continuation of that thought. My final book was The Survival of the Richest. It's really my master conclusions come there. It's about 500+ page book. Check those books out if you're interested. I got them in Audible, also as well as other platforms as printed and digital, you name it. And I also got trailers that just came out. So check those trailers out. They're pretty cool. All right. Well, thank you, folks. You're listening to the Dr. Finance Live podcast with Fred. And Fred is also, again, super lawyer, folks. Definitely check out Fred's website as well. Thank you so much. We'll see you on the next episode. Thank you, Fred.